I am Councillor Jane Rutter. I'm the chair of this King's Barton Forum, and I would like to welcome you all to the meeting. This meeting is being held virtually and in accordance with the Council's rules for virtual meetings. Councillors are reminded that although this meeting is being held remotely, they are regarded as being present in a meeting of the Council, and they should observe the normal rules of behaviour. First of all, can I please ask everyone present in this virtual meeting to keep your microphones muted and your camera turned off whilst you are not addressing the meeting, as this will reduce background noise and avoid any unintentional disturbances. Can also members ensure that their mobile phones are now switched off or on silent? Can I advise that the opening parts of the meeting are being audio recorded and live streamed from the Council's website. In addition, a video recording of the meeting will be uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel after the meeting. Members and officers, where appropriate, for each item, please use the chat function to indicate that you wish to speak or to raise a point of order or explanation, and I will invite you then to speak at the appropriate clear and concise through the chat function. I will announce to the meeting that you are to leave the meeting. Can I ask the Democratic Services Officer to undertake a roll call of members of the committee to confirm who is present this evening? I think we might be having a few connection problems actually with the Democratic Services team. Are we there, Nancy? Is that okay? Functioning? You're on mute. Sorry, no, you're not. Just can't hear you.
Seconds for us, just while you were going through the introduction. I don't know whether that happened to anybody, but it was only in the introductory setting out the rules. So I think we're okay, unless anybody's
all right, well, would you like to just confirm the members that are present this evening? And yes, that would be good. Thank you.
Well, obviously, Councillor Rutter, you're present as chair. If I read out the names of the other councillors, if you could just turn on your camera and unmute yourself, confirm you're present, please. Councillor Cremoisen, please.
Hi, present. Sorry, it took a while to unmute.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Yes, present and accounted for.
Councillor Godfrey.
I am present.
Thank you. Councillor Horrell.
Yes, good evening. I'm present.
Councillor Lerney.
Good evening. I'm present.
Councillor Prince.
Hello, present.
Hello. Councillor Weir.
I believe Councillor Weir is going to be arriving late, isn't she?
She's arriving a little bit later. Sorry about that. Did you want me to go through the councillors from outside from the parish councils and county council as well at this point?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Well, I believe from the county council, we've had apologies from councillors Todd and Warwick, and there's Councillor Porter is deputising.
Yes, good evening. I'm present.
Okay, and we've also had apologies from Littleton Parish Council and Headsbourne Wortley Parish Council.
Okay, great. Can I ask you to confirm the names of the officers present this evening, please?
And we have Julie Pinnock, who is the Service Built Environment Lead, myself and David Blakemore from Democratic Services. Then from Vivid Homes, I believe we have, I'm just checking the Mark Gittos, is that correct? And from Carla Homes, Viv Hill.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any other residents or representatives present?
We have a number of people that have advised that they would like to speak, and that is Katerina Zucker and Mike Stinn from the Residents Association, Dr. Antonio Di Stefano and Tim Norris from Hampshire Swift. I can see we have a few other names in our guest attendance list. I haven't received notification that they'd like to speak, but that would be up to you as chair if you wanted to invite them.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move into the business items of the agenda, starting
Chair,
with...
apologies
Yes,
for butting in
Viv.
there. I'm very sorry, Chair.
That's all right.
My colleagues Ian Curry, who is Technical Director at Carla Homes, and Alison Thompson, who's Senior Planning Manager at Carla Homes, are also on the call today, should they need to input at any point during proceedings today.
Brilliant. Well, if they'd like to just butt in when they've got something relevant to say, that would be great. Thank you very much, Viv. Okay, so item number 1, appointment of vice chair for 2021-22. I would like to nominate Councillor Weir, who is not present but will be coming along later as soon as she can. Are there any other nominations? No. Okay, so Councillor Weir is appointed vice chair for this municipal year. Item number 2, apologies. Nancy, you did give a few originally, didn't you? But do you want to just formally go through those, please?
Yes, I'm afraid at risk of repeating myself again. Councillor Warwick, Councillor Todd, Councillor Iredale, Littleton and Harestoke Parish Council have also sent their apologies, and as you said, Councillor Weir will be joining us slightly later. Okay,
thank you very much. Disclosures of interest, members. Do we have any disclosures of interest, please? Could you indicate in chat or raise a hand? I think I should indicate that I am also a member of Hebburn-Worthy Parish Council, and we had a meeting last night, so I may be raising issues that have been brought up by the Parish Council, but it's a non-prejudicial interest, I think. Councillor Lenny.
Thank you, Chair. I am a member of Littleton and Harestoke Parish Council, so similarly to yourself, particularly in their absence.
Excellent, thank you. Any others? Councillor Cunningham.
Same declaration as Councillor Lerney, I'm afraid, in the absence of the Littleton and Harestoke Parish Council Chairman.
Thank you. Any others? I can't see any other hands. No, please remember to put your hands down when you've made your point. Lovely. Okay, there are no chairperson's announcements. So we move on to item number 5, future meetings. If we could just note the following dates for future meetings of the forum. The 19th of October, the 18th of January 2022, and the 15th of March 2022. In a moment, they're all at 6 p.m. And I believe that they're all at the moment virtual meetings, but we will let you know if things change. Okay, item number 6, minutes of the meeting of the 16th of March 2021. Can I indicate that those records may be signed as a correct record, please? Could I hear?
Agreed.
Is that agreed, members? Yes? Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, we now move on to public participation. We do have a sort of separate slot really for the Residents Association, so I'll hold back from the Residents Association if I may for now. Dr. Antonio De Stefano, if you'd like to ask your question or make your point now, that would be great. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Thanks first of all for giving me the opportunity to talk. My name is Antonio De Stefano and I'm resident in 1B. I have a few questions and observations for cover apps. 1B has been completed and fully occupied for almost 2 years now. As many other residents, I believe that 1B is a lovely place to live in. Yet there are still some problems due to bad maintenance and uncompleted items. Bad smell, pothole, landscaping in bad condition, absence of bins, benches and speed sign, and few more. We are aware that these do not seem big problems, but instead they are important for the residents residents' daily life. There are many long-standing and additional to other uncompleted items related to the trigger points you usually talk about quite extensively. These problems have been reported for 15 months, many times, to this forum and directly to CAVA by resident association and by private residents. Even a CAVA rep 3 months ago in this forum apologized because most of these items should have been completed a long time ago. Now, do not misunderstand me. It is with a very proactive intent I would like to ask. Do you know that these meetings since 2020 are video recorded? Are you aware that whoever from the public, from the media, can easily discredit CAVA by proving that 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, 15 months ago, the questions and the answer regarding these outstanding items were always the same, showing that no progress has been done? Do you realize that 1B residents are not happy? They are exasperated instead. They are tired to receive answers like, and here I quote some of the CAVA reps' historical declaration, that CAVA is committed with, aware of the outstanding items, that CAVA is going to sort out the problems in 1B, having fortnightly meeting on site with a 30-page long remedial plan, that everything is under control and it will be sorted out next month, quickly, imminently, shortly, 90–95% by early spring. So far, action have never followed this declaration. It is promising tonight to read that in CAVA answer for the Residents Association, by August, street furniture should be installed, and by autumn, landscaping should be fixed. In the past, for the residents, it has been very upsetting to hear so many promises and then to see nothing happening. We hope that this time to be not disappointed again. My final, a bit provocative question in the reality is for all the forum that is present tonight, members that are present tonight. Do you realize that this delay at the residents' eyes are jeopardizing not only CAVA reputation, but also the credibility of the entire forum? Thank you. I finished.
Thank you very much, Antonio. I think you've made your point very succinctly and clearly there, and I don't think any member of the forum would actually disagree with most of your comments. So thank you very much for raising those. Mike, welcome. If you could just switch off your microphone and camera for now, and we will come back to the Residents Association formal contribution in a moment, if that's okay. Thank you. So I do believe that most of the issues that you've raised, Antonio, Dr. Stefano, will be covered by Carla and other representatives later on in the meeting. But please do stay in the meeting, and hopefully you will be reassured that all these issues, which, as you very succinctly put about, that we have covered them many times. Let's hope tonight is the last time. Okay, thank you. We have with us Tim Norris, who is from Hampshire Swifts. Welcome, Tim. If you'd like to switch on your microphone and camera and just ask your question or make your comment briefly, if you may. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm Tim Norris from Hampshire Swifts, a charity devoted to reversing the decline of swifts in the county. Swifts are a bird that is in trouble across the country. In the last 25 years, we've lost 2/3 of our population of swifts. That's 100,000 pairs of swifts that we've lost in that time. Swifts are entirely reliant on man-made buildings, mainly houses and churches, in which to nest. The reason for the decline is the loss of nesting sites, A, in older properties as they are improved and re-roofed, and B, none of the new homes built in the last 25 years will ever have any birds nesting in them because of changed building practices. The RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects, the RSPB and the NHBC, the National House Building Council, all recommend that one integral bird brick on average is installed in every new dwelling that is constructed. Planning approval for the first 687 dwellings at King's Barton was given on condition that 7 swift bricks were installed. Please could Carla say which houses they have been built into? Carla have committed last month to install Manthorpe swift bricks in all of the 45 remaining properties of Phase 1A. Will Carla be installing swift bricks in all the remaining properties on development at an average rate of 1 per dwelling. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you. I'm very pleased to have you here this evening, and I'm very pleased that Councillor Russell Gordon-Smith, who is our cabinet member for the looking into the new local plan, is here this evening as well. And I'm sure he's taking careful note, because I know that I and many other councillors would very much like to see a commitment in that new local plan to including swift bricks and other environmental help to our wildlife in all new homes in the district. So maybe Councillor Gordon-Smith can respond to that later. Thank you very much, Tim, and I know that you've had some positive responses already from Carla, and perhaps Viv can talk about that in his contribution in a moment. Now, we could move on now to the Residents Association. You will have seen in the agenda pack that they very helpfully again put in some pertinent questions, and a lot of them have had responses from Carla. So is it Mike who's going to be speaking on behalf of the Residents Association, or Katerina Zucker? Katerina, okay.
Good evening, Chair.
Good
Yes.
evening, Katerina.
If
Thank
I
you.
may.
If you'd like to ask a few supplementary questions, thank you.
Well, there are, yes, some comments or further questions actually, but we're very grateful that this time having received a response in writing really helps elaborate further on what we've been told. So I'll go a bit point by point, but I don't know if perhaps not all the questions are directed to Carla. They could involve the councils as well. So I'll just go point by point. But with regards to the sewage smell and environmental health, we have started to be a bit concerned about. Viv mentions that there's going to be a meeting tomorrow to further discuss any findings of their survey and investigation. And we would like to ask if we could receive an update after the meeting on whatever progress can be done. And we're also wondering if this issue will potentially delay the adoption process for the Winchester Avenue, because it seems that all the manholes that present this issue are actually located nearby or in essentially in public spaces that will be adopted. I don't know if you want me to go through all my list or get some answers a little at a time.
I think the best thing is if you go through it all, and then we will, hopefully it will be picked up in the reports from the officers, and then perhaps you can come back later in the meeting if there are any issues that you still need some clarification on, if that's okay. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. So point 2 was about the highways and possibly having an update on the installation of a signalized crossing point on Andover Road and resurface, and the speed limit review again for Andover Road North, which we had no response about, but of course that was not regarding Carla specifically. And also there had been we have received confirmation that the footpath from Andover Road to the school, to the Barton Farm Primary Academy, would be resurfaced, but we've noticed that that hasn't happened yet. It hasn't started, and we know that the deadline was sort of beginning of the school year, so we would like to receive an update as well on that. The following point was about the redesign of the layout of Winchester Avenue, which is currently under consideration by Hampshire County Council, and Carla rightly so tells us that they're waiting for feedback on that. So I was wondering if Hampshire County Council could provide us with a timeline about when that will be approved and possibly completely delivered. And just wanted to point out that some residents have been here for over 4 years with unfinished roads, levels that don't match, ramps. It seems like a long wait for for some public works to be finished. And I know that there's a procedure to follow, so things can't be rushed, but I wonder if there's something that CALA and Hampshire County Council could do in the way they work together to prevent this from happening in future phases, because it's not going to sound nice if people have to wait this long to get the roads. Yeah, I mean, we live in a lovely area, but a road is an essential facility to have to get home. So a lot of people are complaining about the ramps and bumps. And while CALA did fix some potholes that had created just from wear and tear, the overall redesign and decisions about the Winchester Avenue seem to be taking an awfully long time. So hopefully there will be some improvements in future phases. Next, we had, shared surface signs. Well, there's a box that we can tick finally. On the we see that the shared surface signage has been installed. However, my question would be on, so there's a difference between the speed limit, which will be 30 miles per hour on Winchester Avenue, and the new design, or the design we're told should match, it will be designed for 20 mile per hour speed. Now, I'm no expert, so I'm just asking, why does the design not match the speed limit, and who can guarantee that this is going to be safe, especially for the areas where furniture is installed closer to the road, to prevent cars from speeding perhaps, but not at the risk of pedestrian or cyclist safety, hopefully. And could we start a conversation with Hampshire County Council and perhaps reconsider the speed limit for Winchester Avenue? I don't expect a nod, but it seems like I don't understand why the rationale is, let's have a road where you can do 20 miles per hour, but we'll tell you that you can do 30 safely. So yes, we'd like some more responses on that. About the street furniture, we're told that by mid-August that should be installed, and I'm really happy to see finally a sort of deadline on this. So we'll just wait and see. Regarding footpaths and access to the whole area, we raised the point about the steps leading onto Andover Road from the bit of Stony Lane, which is actually in phase 1A. And CALA's response is that they will paint contrasting white lines on each step, which I'm sure would help a little bit, but I'm wondering, because this seems like a very temporary solution, I'm wondering how long do we expect it to be in place? And if it's a matter of years, wouldn't it be better to have, waste a bit more money, but make it safer rather than with just paint, which can get slippery actually on a rainy day. So I would like this point to be developed a little further, especially depending on how long CALA expects this to have to stay in place as the only measure, safety measure in that particular position. Then the new footpath that hasn't been completed entirely on the south side of the area up to the tree-lined ridge. CALA is telling us that there's a possibility to develop a temporary route across the front of the school to the Ridgeway. Now, if I understand correctly, this would be still a temporary solution, but connectivity in the whole area seems to be quite a big issue. And so if they could create temporary route sooner than when the avenue is going to be fully opened, it would be greatly appreciated, of course. And with regards to the railway pass, yes, so we know that that is underway, and they're waiting for the Hampshire County Council's approval. But the connectivity for phase 1B to Wellhouse Lane is also quite an important point. And Viv tells us that they're considering creating a route from phase 1B going along the sort of the boundary of phase 1B effectively. So we really appreciate their effort to try and put this forward slightly compared to when it would be developed in the current timeline. So we'd like to ask Viv if he can share just a draft of the path and rough timescale for when that could be delivered. Now, in terms of general amenities, we had, we'd asked about the electric vehicles charging points, which Viv tells us they're going to be delivered in future phases for future residents. But of course, it would be great if they could consider retrofitting some charging points in the existing phases as well, because, we want the whole estate to be rather uniform in terms of facilities and amenities that we're given. Okay, and then there's some landscaping, and planting, which will be done in autumn 2021. So again, we're very happy to see timeline or some dates for this. Now, just one final point about the development timeline. We had asked, because we understand that the trigger points based on occupations are quite volatile, and we understand that we can't be given a precise date as to when those occupations will be reached, but roughly a range of months, years. I mean, it's a big development. We know it will take another 10 years if we're lucky to get to the last brick. If Carla could provide some rough dates, that would be great. However, we noticed that the previous trigger occupation numbers that would trigger this some of these works were at 200 occupations. So if this is the official response and this is now the current number of occupations accepted by the forum and by the councils, we're wondering, when did this change and who approved the change? Or, well, we don't need to know the whole process, but of course, why did it change? We realized that it wasn't met. And so if a concession was made, have there been any consequences for Carla in payment or in other benefits to the community? Because these are very important works for us, and the implementation of these works are would make a big difference for our community. So would like it and going from 200 occupations to 650 seems like quite a concession. Yes.
It's a big leap. You're absolutely right, Katerina. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, and I think you're right to raise that and the knock-on effect. And I hope that both the County Council and Carla will be able to explain how that has happened. I think the rest is all about trigger points, isn't it? Yes. And when things will be happening. Yeah. Which we'll cover in the rest of the agenda. Thank you very much. So thank you. Well, you just hold on, and hopefully we'll get answers to most, if not all, of those questions in due course. Thank you very much for coming along, Katerina. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for the members of the public for their contributions. Very helpful and pertinent. Okay, item 8 on the agenda is the revised terms of reference. Julie Pinnock, would you like to just go through that very briefly? And we can note those revised terms of reference. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. As you know, you're already you're adopting them this evening anyway as we're going through. I was asked sort of at the end of last municipal year by my former cabinet member, Councillor Porter, who's obviously here tonight, to look at the 3 MDAs and look at the terms of reference for each, because they were all slightly different. And I appreciate the MDAs are at different stages, but what we wanted to do was look at how these forums operate to make sure that there was some consistency and continuity of approach. So what I did was I looked and reviewed all 3. I've obviously been sort of over the last year sitting on the 3 forums anyway, so I had sort of first-hand experience. But equally, what I didn't want to do was sort of, you know, change what worked really well with the engagement and the consultation and the opportunity to speak. So I took the best of all 3 and created a single terms of reference, which is what we're adopting tonight, Chair. And I think what that does, it just looks at making sure that our purposes are to look at the objectives clearly that are set out in the terms of reference, and then traditional agenda items that we will follow as we're doing tonight. So hopefully that's a high level summary, Chair. It was endorsed by Cabinet back in June, and it will be reviewed annually to see where we are in terms of, because the forums, you know, initially it's looking at planning, implementation as we're doing tonight, but then the journey moves forward to a sort of a more community led, and we're kind of in the early stages, and I know the community are well formed here, but you know, we're not halfway yet, so we're just in that transition stage, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Pinnock. Yes, so we could all just read through the terms of reference, and if any members of the forum have got any comments or would like to see any changes to those terms of reference, as Mrs. Pinnock said, we will be reviewing these annually, so please do let me or us know. Councillor Godfrey, you have a question? I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm grateful for a few moments. There were a couple of well, I felt might be discrepancies on the proposed new terms of reference. One of which is in the opening line of the description of North Whiteley, which it said it included affordable housing, which it quite clearly doesn't. But more relevant, the matters in the public participation restricts the public participation to just 10 minutes at the beginning of each forum meeting.
I believe that's at the discretion of the chair, Councillor Godfrey.
Yes, I think but it is also a very heavily limit, which I would not wish to ever see enforced.
Well, let's put that on the let's put at the top of the list for reviewing next year. Thank you.
Yes, and the other issue I note there is the issue of voting rights. As this is not, as each of these forums are not decision-making bodies, I'm not quite sure why there would be any voting rights. Speaking rights are probably the only thing which are of any value, and I think that's would be far more pertinent as who has the right to speak at these forum meetings. Okay,
thank you, Councillor Godfrey. Thank you. I think it's a useful thing to have the ability to at least have a vote on something, and it would be an indicative vote. It wouldn't be binding on anybody, but it would be an indicative vote. But we haven't ever yet. So, but I would resent losing that opportunity. Mrs. Pinnock.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just going to say the same, really. I think my experience across the 3 forums is, yes, you don't actually make any decisions, but actually what you do here and what you would as a forum might agree is that you might take a vote on whether you all agree to write to somebody and lobby somebody, or what does the forum think about that. So it does give the members that are voting a chance to have their say in that regard, and there may well be some actions that you follow up that you all, and sometimes I've been at meetings where not everyone necessarily agrees with those actions, so it's sort of more or less a show of hands, isn't it, and a kind of an agreeing an approach, which I don't think I've experienced at King's Barton, but I have at one of the other forums, Chair. And note the point about North Whiteley, it's probably just picked up of the planning description. There is a contribution rather than an on-site delivery there, as you know. And I think the point about public participation is, you know, as Councillor Rush said, it is in the discretion of the chair. It was just bringing that consistency across. But equally, I mean, we've seen it tonight, haven't we, that we've had much longer in terms of the public speakers and hearing from the Residents Association. That's so critical at these meetings.
Thank you. I think that's very essential. If I may make my final point, which relates to membership or attendance. On each of the fora, there is no representation of officers from Hampshire County Council, and we see tonight, and as we have in the last 2 or 3 meetings, but it would be extremely useful to have relevant attendance by county council officers. I think they should be, that would probably apply to all 3 of these fora.
Thank you, Councillor Godfrey. I know that the County Council were originally going to be sending an officer, and Mrs. Pinnock has got a report from the County Council.
Chair, actually, with your permission, sorry to talk over you, but Katia Holloway is here on the call, I understand, was able to step in for her colleague tonight. She put her hand up, and obviously we can hear from Katia in a bit. Thank you, Katia. And I wanted to make that clear, you know, we have, you know, the County Council will attend when we need them to, Chair. And as you said, they've provided me with a written response, but now Katia's here, she can probably pick up on some of those issues and perhaps some of the questions that that Katerina was asking from the Residents Association.
Excellent, thank you. Well, welcome to that representative of the County Council. Very, very pleased to hear you're here this evening. Okay, so that's covered the terms of reference. So we're on to item number 9 on the agenda, which is updates on the physical development of the MDA. So Councillor Pinnock, do you want to, Councillor Pinnock, Mrs. Pinnock, would you like to introduce this item, and then perhaps we can have some responses from various representatives to the questions and points that have been raised. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I suppose what we should have done at the beginning of the meeting, and hopefully it's okay to put this in here now. Chris Hughes, who is the implementation officer and community development worker at Kings Barton, some of you may know, has been off sick for a little while, and he isn't with us tonight. He is back at work, but just easing in gradually, and she'll be back hopefully to the next forum, and we'll obviously be picking up on some of the issues. So we don't have Chris's expert in-depth knowledge with us here tonight, so I'm trying to pick up some of the more high-level matters. So what Viv has agreed to do, he's obviously prepared the supplemental paper and answered sort of some of those questions in writing, which I know was very much appreciated. He is here tonight, and we'll take you through his report and pick up some of those answers, Chair, if that's okay. And if there's anything that he or Hampshire can't answer, then maybe we might have to take some of those away and respond after the meeting. So if I hand over to Viv, Chair, with your permission.
Indeed, thank you. Welcome, Viv.
Thank you very much. I think what we'll do, myself and Ian Curry, we'll probably do a bit of a double act, so you get 2 pretty faces for the price of 1 tonight. If I could take the, I think probably start with the Swifts and our approach to sort of biodiversity across the development, if I may. I'm pleased to say that we have got, we are developing, or we have developed an urban wildlife strategy for all new development sites we're delivering as Carla Thames and Legal and General Homes, and that includes a number of measures, including Swift bricks, and note Hampshire Swift's request for an average of 1 per 1 across the remaining phases at Kings Barton. That's something we're looking to implement. It should be noted that not every dwelling may be suitable for a Swift brick, but if it isn't, then we'll be looking to cluster a certain number of Swift bricks on buildings such as taller apartment buildings along urban corridors where we can get the balance of 1-to-1 across remaining dwellings across all phases. And so I think you picked up the number there in terms of the 40 odd that we're delivering on phase 1A, and we'll be looking to put a wholesale approach to the urban wildlife strategy across phase 2A. And worth just noting that this isn't just about the swifts, that there'll be all bird nesting species. We're also looking to introduce further bat roosting features on our developments alongside hedgehog highways, which for those who don't know as much about hedgehog highways, this is cutting a hole in fences in rear gardens and annotating those that residents are educated in why the hole in their fence is there, to allow hedgehogs to pass between garden to garden. And we'll also be looking to introduce invertebrate bricks into boundary walls for solitary bees, etc. So we've got a full urban wildlife strategy which we'll be rolling out across the project going forward. So I hope that satisfies the concern there from a wildlife perspective, and particularly the swifts on this development.
Viv, do you want me to pick up on the sewage smell?
Thank you, Ian. Yeah.
So residents in 1B will be aware that obviously we've had some sewage smells emanating out of the main sewer, foul sewer, and we've done some temporary sealing up of manholes. It is only temporary, just to see if we can identify the exact cause of the smell. People might think that obviously because it's a foul sewer, it's likely to smell, and that if I'm brutally honest, we are all a little bit flummoxed by this issue. And we've got Southern Water involved, we've got our contractor involved, we've had CCTV surveys done to make sure there's no blockages, and we are a little bit at a loss as to why this is happening. We've looked at various options and different routes of how it could be happening, and there is one route that we're now pursuing that we think it might have something to do with the pumping station, which is on phase 1A, but we're not wholly convinced. So we're looking at doing some tests and to enable us to check that when the pump is working, because it doesn't work continuously, and we've noticed that the smells are not continuous, they are intermittent, but they are intermittent very closely. So it might be 10 minutes or 15 minutes between the smells emanating out of the manhole. So we're on it, we're trying to work out what it is. We've got another meeting tomorrow to come together with some more data to see if we can understand how this is happening. So we're not walking away from it, but it's not something that we've come across before that has been an issue. So, and we're using industry experts to try and help us identify what the problem is. So to reiterate, we're not walking away from the problem, we're trying to deal with it, so please bear with us. So we understand it is a nuisance. It's not an environmental health issue per se, but it is a nuisance, and we do understand that.
The two councillors with their hands up, do they want to come in and ask a question on that particular matter before we move on to
yes, I was
other
just going to ask that. Councillor Weir, did you want to come in on that?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to observe, and it might or might not be useful to you, there is also a sewage smell on Andover Road as you progress away from phase 1A up to past Park Road. There's been a persistent sewage smell up there for several weeks. So I don't know if the two are connected, but you might want to ask Southern Water to investigate that as well.
Okay, well that's thank you for letting us know that. In essence, if the smell is in Park Road, that will be for Park Road residents to contact Southern Water. That I can't see how that could be connected to us whatsoever, as because our sewage system is completely separate to that. But it's interesting. It is interesting that it's happening at the same time. So when we speak to Southern Water, we'll also mention it. But ultimately, it will be for Park Road residents to also mention it. So if you're able to communicate that to Park Road residents, that would be helpful, because if we're using a pincer movement on Southern Water, then that might help. So
I'll do that.
But just to reiterate, Southern Water are being helpful. So yeah. Wasn't a disparaging comment against Southern Water.
I will make sure.
Thank you. It's a wider problem than just Kings Barton. Councillor Lerney, did you have your hand up? Did you want to ask a question on one of these issues, or?
It's already been responded to. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Sorry, thank you. Thank you very much. Please carry on.
Thank you. Chair.
I've had my hand up to speak on this matter. You didn't call me.
I beg your pardon, Councillor Horrell. I didn't see your hand up. Thank you for cutting in. If you could use the, are you able to use the chat function?
Sorry, I put my hand up and you.
Yes, no, I understand that, but for me it's easier to monitor the chat function than hands up, because they disappear if you're not on the screen, if you see what I mean. So please do carry on, Councillor Horrell. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and it absolutely relates to the sewerage issue, and in my broader responsibilities in the ward, along with Councillors Godfrey and Cunningham, we have several developments that have had extensive issues with the sewerage system, particularly smells emanating, and with the new technologies in sewerage systems, smells which people perhaps historically thought weren't there are actually much more evident in the way the technologies that are used. And there is some experience within the council with the special projects team, where they've been helping us try and identify the issues here. And smells in particular are, completely invasive. They obviously impact the enjoyment of the communal and personal space outside. And my observation of these things is that they are actually much more difficult to solve than we think, and also whether the right capacities have been put in at the right parts on the development. And I'm not questioning your development skills, but it is clear in other developments in our area we don't have the appropriate installations for the houses that we have built. So I'm alarmed when I was alarmed when I read this question in the residents' report, and I understand that you're looking at it, but I do think this is something that we need to pay very special attention to, because, as I say, it's not easily solved, and there may be experience in Winchester City Council that Chris can tap into that might be useful for you to discuss with other experts in your effort to try and solve this. But I hear the concern of other residents in our district who have had issues, and it is an absolutely terrible way to live. So I just I offer that comment in a way to try and support the efforts, and to ask that you give it your absolute priority attention. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Horrell. Thank you for raising that important point, which I'm sure has been taken on board. I know the City Council's been aware of this issue for some time, so I think any support that's needed is been offered. Okay, do you want to carry on now, Viv or Ian?
Okay, Viv, do you want me to just talk about the highways, item number 2, if you like, if that's...
Thank you, Ian. Yes, please.
Okay. Sorry, item number 2 isn't to do with us, is it? So it's just highways generally within the phase 1B area is what I would like to talk about. Is that we are aware that the roads don't have their wearing course on. Some of the roads do, some of them don't. It's mainly the roads that will be adopted. We are still working with the Hampshire County Council on getting these resolved. In fairness, we are trying to establish some principles on the Spine Road, which is the main road going through the centre of the site, which we call the Spine Road. We've now got some traction on that. We've had some another meeting only this morning, got some positive responses from Hampshire, which is great news. So it means that we can move further forward with getting our technical approval, which will then apply to phase 1B Spine Road as well. So there's some positive news there. We're not deliberately being slow about it. It is quite a complex issue. There are some of these issues, and I'm sure Hampshire Highways would confirm this, that some of the things that we're wanting to do to make the Kings Barton development special are departures from what Hampshire normally do. So it's not a case of just ticking a box, or there's quite a detailed amount of work that needs to go into this. So that's the reason for the delay. We're trying to get it done, and we're, as I said, we're working hard with Hampshire County Council. I can't give you specific dates, and I know people will be perhaps a little dismayed to hear that we haven't been able to give dates at the moment. It is not something that we're trying to delay, as I said. It's something that is important to us, that these roads are brought up to the right standard. We're constantly monitoring them to make sure they are safe. So if any residents are aware of areas that are unsafe, please do let us know, but we do monitor the areas to make sure that they are safe. There are areas that are not as pretty as that they can be because we haven't got the wearing course on yet. But as soon as we are able to do that, it is in our best interest, as we understand it would be in yours, to get it done as quickly as possible. There's nothing more to say on the signage, is it, that we've put up? I think. No,
I think great to see that the signs have gone in, the shared surface signs along those service roads to alongside the avenue. I think there was a comment from Katrina then on the design speed of the avenue, and I don't believe that's one for Carla to comment on. Ultimately, the speed limit of the road would be determined by Hampshire County Council, so perhaps they might comment on that. But certainly the intention from the outset of this development was that the design speed of the roads was 20 miles an hour to bring speeds down, but the limit, the sort of the legal limit, would always be 30 miles per hour. Seen a couple of hands go up there. I don't know if it's worth.
Yes, very briefly, can we, Nicola Wells, head teacher of the primary school, would you like to?
Hi, yeah, sorry, this doesn't relate directly to the signage on the actual in the main part of the estate, but it does. I have got a question about signage about the school, which I did contact Carla about, but have heard nothing back from.
Please.
And this might not be the right time, but I need some clarification from either Carla or from Winchester or from, I don't know whether it's Headbourne Worthy, about how we get some signage put up for our school, because people still don't know we're here. And I really want to promote the school, and I have contacted Carla Marketing about it. I've had no response. So yes, I'd like a way forward if possible, please. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
Not at all. Viv, did you want to contribute to that, or?
I've not heard of this request, so I feel like I'm put on the spot a little bit here. But please, perhaps we need to have a conversation with you, Nicola, and find out what it is you want. But if it's signage outside the development, I presume that would be a discussion with Hampshire, not Carla ourselves. Or are you talking about signage within the development itself?
So I'm talking about signage. Ideally, as you enter the development, which I think still is your land at the moment. So where you've got your big Carla Home sign at the top of Andover Road, where the traffic lights are, it would be brilliant to have a sign that says, this is also the home of Barton Farm Primary Academy. And I'd also like a sign on the Andover Road, which is obviously not your jurisdiction, but I'm not sure whose jurisdiction it is, whether it's Hampshire County Council, whether it's Winchester City Council. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach. I contacted Rachel Slater back in May about this and didn't get a response. Okay,
Nicola, if you leave that with me, I'll talk to Rachel about it. We might be able to do something for you. I'm not sure it's, being candid with you, I'm not sure it's our responsibility to do something. Advertising schools is not part of our remit, but I think we could do something to help you out. I'm sure we could. So
I can get a sign, but I can't put it up there because it's not my land.
Well, if you can get a sign, we can put it up.
Okay.
And I'm sure the county council officer will be able to comment on the other signage that's not in the development later on. Thank you very much, Nicola.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Cramoyson, you have a hand up. Is that something, you have a relevant question now?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do. Ian, I just wanted to question you in regard to your comments about the road surfacing and the work you're doing with Hampshire County Council, and it's a little bit non-standard, so that's why it's a little bit difficult. I think one of the things I heard from Katerina in her relaying of what the residents are looking for is some kind of guide on timeline. I appreciate that you don't have total control on this, and it may take. You may not be able to give a precise timeline, but can we get some idea of what type of timeline we're working on? Are we working on 3 months, or are we talking about a year? Something in between that gives people some idea of what to expect, rather than going away without any idea.
Okay, so and I would suggest 18 months. 18 months. Yes. That's and I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear, but I think we've got to be realistic here. I think if we can do it sooner than that, we will. I think there's a process to be followed, technical approval process. We haven't yet, excuse me, we haven't yet got technical approval, so we need to do that. There's, as I said, there's departures from the standard. We're looking at variations to what some of the things that we've already built. So it's quite a complex process, and I'm not, I'm not trying to extend the time period. For me, I would like to do it tomorrow. Unfortunately, I can't. It's nothing better for me than to finish 1B and get all those roads topped out, and to get residents to say, we're really happy with the road surface. I can't do that at the moment, and that is outside of my control, but we are pushing for it to happen.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, in a way, that is what I wanted. I wanted some kind of guide. So thank you for that. That's really appreciated. I'll leave it for Katerina and others from the Residents Association to comment on that later, or perhaps in a future dialogue. But we'll take that on board and think about it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cranmoyson. Thank you. Okay, Ian, if you want to carry on, or
what's the next? There's a street furniture issue.
Yes. I mean, Ian, I have had an update from our supplier Borderland today on that. They're still chasing their supplier of the furniture to deliver it to site. It is a frustration. We'll continue to chase on a weekly basis to get this street furniture delivered, and with every hope that it can be installed by mid-August. So we'll continue to provide updates on that as and when we know more information. The next point was on the steps, I believe, the temporary steps at Stony Lane. I'd be interested to know if this is a perceived problem or a problem, because I think we're talking, I think from memory, it's 3 or 4 steps up to the pedestrian footpath, and by painting white lines on there, we're talking about a small strip, a 50mm strip on the leading edge of a concrete step. I don't think that would be slippery underfoot, and you can get the right type of paint that goes on these steps to make sure it isn't slippery. But these are only temporary steps to provide a direct route to the existing footpath, and I think anything more than that feels like it may not be required in this instance. But happy.
Maybe we could just have the white paint, the non-slip white paint, and see how we go, and perhaps the residents can let you know if there are any issues with that then. Lovely, thank you.
The route to the ridge line, obviously there's a number of things here. We need to look at the feasibility of delivering a pedestrian route past the school to the ridge line. I know there are informal paths created by residents already up past the edge of the hoarding to the ridge line, and whether residents continue to use that, or there is something more formalised in front of the school. It's not something we've discussed as a team before, so we need to go away, have a look at it on the ground, on the site, to see how feasible that is. Linked to that is the request, and I think we'd offered to put in the route, which extends from 1B along sort of parallel to Warehouse Lane over towards the railway arch. And I think there was a request for the timeline to deliver that. We would look to deliver that at the same time that we complete the Warehouse Lane railway bridge arch connection, the zigzag path up to the ridgeway in that sort of northeast corner of the site. And what we are proposing is that this new route, again, because it is a temporary route, would follow the existing hedge line parallel to Warehouse Lane, and then connect into the better surface route around the attenuation basin. Happy to share a plan for residents to have a look at, so they can see the alignment of that, but it would provide that east-west connection for 1B residents towards Warehouse Lane. There were some questions on occupations, and just a sort of point of clarity that in terms of the occupations that we've included in our report are the Section 106 agreed obligations to deliver infrastructure around the site. They haven't been extended. The road, any of the highway works that complete the avenue are all at 650 occupations. That was agreed at outline planning stage. Our only obligation at 200 dwellings, sorry, it was at 250. The 250 occupation trigger was the delivery of the footpath from Barton Meadows through to 1A. So there may have been a sort of a misinformation there in terms of what we needed to deliver by 200. We haven't pushed any occupation triggers out for highways works in respect of the avenue or the completion of the community centre with the shops and the pub. That is all at 1,000 occupations. And there's a question there from residents on the completion of the new roundabout at the crossing of Andover Road. Again, there isn't a roundabout proposed in the north. At the northern section of Warehouse Lane, it is a signalised. We have permission for a signalised junction there. So again, if it was helpful, we could share the details of the 106, maybe at the next forum, or include that as part of an appendix, or the approved plans for that junction. So
that would be helpful. Thank you.
Don't want to be accused of pushing occupations back when we haven't. We're still in line with meeting our obligations in those occupation triggers.
There was a point about electric vehicle charging points, and I'm reassured to see that future residents will have charging points, but it does beg the question, what about the existing residents? Is there no intention to put in some charging points for existing residents?
Well, I can answer that. We have no, and Viv, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no planning obligation to provide electric vehicle charging to all residents, or even some, is there? I don't think there's.
Correct.
But Carla are wanting to understand now that electric vehicles are becoming more popular. So we're looking to try and implement more electric vehicle charging on phases going forward. There is no obligation or requirement for us to go backwards and do areas or put vehicle charging in where we've already completed phases. So that, as a retrospective thing to do, would be very costly for us as a company to do. It wouldn't be. How would you do it? It's which properties would you do? How many charging points would you put in? There's too many questions with apartment blocks and the like. We've got existing residents asking similar questions, but unfortunately, it's not an easy fix. And together with the substation power requirements. If everybody goes for electric charging, substations might need to be upgraded and the like. So it's a very complex and not an easy retrospective thing to do. So there are no plans to go back to older phases, but for new phases, now with electric cars becoming more prevalent in society, they would be looking to implement that on phases going forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other comments you wanted to make on the Residents Association questions? I think the rest are just talking about trigger points, aren't they? Or items for the County Council to comment on. So is that it for you and Ian and Viv? Is that it for you two?
I've got nothing else to say unless people have got any questions on what we've said or if we've missed anything. So
thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you, Viv. Thank you. Do any members of the forum have any further questions for our Carla representatives at this time? No. Could if you've raised your hand, could you just remember to put it down if your question has been answered, please? Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for coming along. It's very good to see you here. Oh, we have Councillor Horrell with a question. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, just remembering to put it into chat this time. I hear the sort of frustration in some of the residents and the speeds in which we're doing things, and I know we're actually working in you know, unusual, unknown times in terms of all of us living a different life, and materials and restrictions and risk assessments, all of those things. So I get that completely. I suppose my question is, how can we as a council forum, the administration have a responsibility, but the broader community, what else can we do to help you get some of these things solved so that the residents who are already in situ feel that we've got a better speed about us and a better response time? Is there anything that we're doing that slows you down? Is there anything that we should be asking for so that we can respond more effectively? Because I hear the frustration, and as I say, and I worry that some things are just not going on. I hear the rationale for why they're not happening, but I also understand some of the sort of emotion in what is being expressed this evening, and why people are feeling just, you know, what else do we have to do? And we were challenged by a member of the public earlier about you know, the responsiveness of the forum and our reputation. So I'm just asking, you know, how can we work more effectively in partnership with you to come up with some of those solutions? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horrell. I think Carla representatives did suggest that they could put in the minutes and papers for the next meeting some more plans for the Spine Road and so on, and footpaths and all the rest of it. And I'm sure that that would be helpful. But I don't know if you wanted to comment on Councillor Horrell's question. I've also got Councillor Porter with a question as well.
Shall I just comment on Councillor Horrell's question?
Yes,
and I think it's a very good question, in fairness, and a fair one. It's something that I would like to consider, actually, and take it back to the team and see whether it's something that this forum could do and to assist. Or, you know, we're going to be here for a while, and we don't want to be, you know, the bad guys here. We want to be the good guys, and we want people to be saying, you know, Carla are great and we're doing a fantastic job. But we are challenged that, you know, particularly in the last 18 months, as we all have been, and we can't keep using that as an excuse. But there are some genuine challenges out there that you know, as we all know. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to take that away and just give it some thought, and because I don't want to be sort of picking out people that you know, or whatever, but there are some, you know, perhaps some easy wins there that we need to consider, that we might be able to just throw back and say, you know, can you assist in this, that and the other? So is that a fair comment? I don't want to be put on the spot here now, just try and think of something, but it's a really helpful question and very well received. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I'm very happy to have a conversation offline, and, you know, as I say, we should be working in partnership with you, because it's for everyone's benefit that people are satisfied. So
totally agree.
Yeah, please let's take that away and see if we can come up with some things, and part of it may be just managing expectations too, but yes. Thank you for that. We'll talk further.
Thank you.
If I could just add to that very briefly, I think if there are items that residents have asked for, or we know as a forum we want to deliver, but they're outside Carla's control to deliver, I think continuing to push as a forum to get those in, such as the footpath along the Ridgeway to the school, I think would be hugely beneficial, because there has always been in the past a little bit of a grey area as to whose responsibility that was. So items like that, which can be controlled by Winchester and Hampshire, I think would be incredibly valuable, that residents can then see that those things are happening, And I think that there's definitely a role there for the forum to play in that respect.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'm very pleased that we've got a representative from the County Council here, an officer from the County Council here this evening as well, who I'm sure will have a contribution to make in due course. I've got two more questions. I've got thank you, Councillor Horrell. I've got Councillor Porter, and then the Residents Association representative would like to ask a question as well. Thank you.
Yes, and I apologise, my chat doesn't work because I'm linked into Winchester, but I'm here as a guest, so the chat isn't working, so I can only put my hand up. I apologise for that. Ian, it was very good to hear your comments. We have been working, and I'm sure Katia will go through in a bit more detail in some of the fine detail of the really complicated processes that you've had to go through. Two simple questions really. The work that's going on to connect 1B to Wellhouse Lane, do you have a specific time by which you're expecting to deliver that? Because that is Carla's responsibility, isn't it? And the second question, I'll then go on to the bit by the sections by the school, the routes into school. So do you have a specific time when you're expecting to do that work?
When you say that, you talk about the Wellhouse Lane works.
Yeah, the link, not the Wellhouse Lane works under the railway arch.
Okay, the
footpath. This is about
link.
the footpath that's on your land. When do you expect to actually deliver that?
That's a very good question, and my understanding, and I would like to check this rather than give duff information, but my understanding is that to get it done as soon as possible, and I did make some notes.
While Ian's looking for his notes, there obviously there are two things connected here. One is that the physical, the route, the tarmac route from Warehouse Lane up to the ridge line on the eastern edge of the site, and then there's this more informal path which we're going to create to connect 1B. So our obligation is to deliver the footpath from Warehouse Lane to the ridge line, not 1B. So that the obligation is to the ridge line.
Is that a cycle route as well? Sorry,
it is a cycle route. That's a cycle route. The 1B link is something that the residents have asked for, and we've looked to deliver, and that is the route that we could put in alongside the existing hedge. That we're not obligated to deliver that, but it is something that we would like to deliver to give 1B residents that east-west connection.
But I thought that you were going to be redesigning the zigzag path.
Correct.
To be more in line with LTN 120.
Correct.
Because it's got too many zigs in it.
Yeah.
Too many zigs in the zigzag path. So I have to say I got from the impression from the county councillors or the county council officers that was part of the design, was to create a straight route and a less zigzag route.
Yep.
So there's a more direct route as well.
Yep.
So going back to the question is, so are you going to be creating both at the same time, or are you going to be creating them at different times?
My understanding is that we're trying to create it both at the same time. Right. But again, I'd like to just double check on this. But so we'd look to be starting those works this autumn. That would be the plan. Right.
And how long do they take, do you think?
So I knew you were going to ask me that.
Sorry.
At a guess, I would say 3 months. I mean, the problem is we're coming into the wrong time of year to do it, which isn't ideal.
This week's not being so good either.
Yeah, it's Viv, what do you think?
3 months. 3 months.
I would.
Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable. It's a steep part of the site.
Yeah.
So there's a fair bit of engineering to happen in that corner to create a direct stepped route and the one big zigzag to make it easier for cyclists.
It's not an easy site at all, is it?
No, and there's a few approval processes that we need to go through first because of less zigs and more zags or whatever it is that we're doing. So you know the will is to start in the autumn. I'm sounding like the highways agency here, aren't I, without giving a specific date. But it's definitely, you know, that was our plan to some of those works could run concurrently with the Wellhouse Lane works. So because it's very close, and we'd have machines there and be able to do some of that work at the same time, and then we just continue on with the rest of the path. But
because I was going to say, because we obviously don't want one open without the other open, really, do we?
yeah, but it's yes, we get that, and that's why we're just trying to get it done. It won't happen concurrently, but it will happen one after the other. So that's what we're aiming for.
Right, so the second path I wanted to ask you about was the ridge path, because I know that has been a real challenge to find the funding for it, and the path is actually the land is yours, but the path has to be sorted out. And you kindly offered to, if the surfacing material was found, you kindly offered to lay it down. Is that still the case? That was some time ago that was offered.
Yeah, I've got a which.
That's the right one. That's the path from the Andover Road to the school, right, along the route.
It's the ridgeline path. Is that sort of the existing, I suppose, track that's there? And I think Winchester said that they could potentially use monies that were earmarked for the development and then we could use our ground worker to put it in if the monies were found to deliver.
Yeah, because we're very, very close to all of that now, and in fact Winchester's already done that and Hampshire's working on it. So I just wondered if that was still.
So when very happy to take this offline and just talk through what that actually means, because I'm not sure what material we're talking about. Are we talking about like a Breeden gravel type of?
Yeah, or Fiddlewood stone. Right, yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay.
Well, but I raise it because I know that Chris was trying to pursue it, but obviously has not been able to do it over the last few weeks, and so that's a challenge. We just need to tie that up before the school holiday, really, or around the school holiday time.
Okay, I'm sure Mrs. Pinnock has also made a note of that it all needs to be sorted out before the school goes back in September would be best, really. Yes, thank you very much.
Sorry,
Chair,
just Councillor Porter, just double check, just for absolute clarity, when we talk about the zigzag route, or the one big zigzag for cyclists to get from the ridge line down to Warehouse Lane and then the direct route, we are talking about. The intention was that it would be a stepped route to give you that direct route, which shortcuts the zigzag up to the ridge line. Yeah. You're not talking about a direct route, a direct permanent route to 1B, are we?
No, this was. I was under the impression that it was going to have under the impression it's going to be a stepped route and a zigzag.
Right. Yeah. That's what the plan shows at present. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad we've got that sorted out, I hope. Okay, I think we've got Katerina Zuka from the Residents Association with a question as well now. Yes.
Chair. Sorry, I couldn't use the chat either. I've taken off my hand. It was just a couple of comments really on the responses that we've had from Ian and Viv. First of all, with the street furniture, I understand that it's frustrating sometimes with contractors or suppliers, but we've been asking for this for years, and I think we've been very patient and just waiting for the next update, and the next update is always a few months down the line. So we really hope that you're putting much more pressure on your suppliers than we're putting on you, because
can I just interrupt you? We didn't actually formally respond on that, other than the note that Viv had sent previously, which says the lead-in times for the street furniture continue to be lengthy. However, all items are expected to be delivered to site within a fortnight. Subsequently, the installation should be possible by mid-August. Are we, Viv, is that still your understanding based on that note? Is there anything that's changed since then, do you know?
I think I provided a very quick update, is that the borderland, that the supplier are still chasing their supplier to deliver it. So we have not had confirmation that it will be delivered within 2 weeks. We will continue to chase that to try and make it happen, but it is out of our control. It's third parties that we're relying on to deliver that. Orders have been placed, money has been paid for these items. We will continue to chase.
Okay, Katerina, we'll keep you posted on that, because you know, I totally understand if you've been waiting a long time. I get it.
Long before the pandemic.
Yeah, no, and I'm not using the pandemic as an excuse. But I'll make a few phone calls tomorrow, and we'll just see whether we can. We need to understand that people are taking it seriously. So
yes.
Viv's obviously tried very hard to get that information. I might be able to beat a few people up to make it happen quicker.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of the politically correct thing to say at that point.
I'm Italian. There's no politically correct way to say it. I'll just go for it. Regarding the electric vehicle charging points, I can't begin to imagine all that you'd have to do to retrofit all these charging points here, and we wouldn't expect any more or any more per square meter charging points, of course, in the existing phases. However, 2,000 homes is an ambitious project, so we don't expect, we don't think of Cala as a development company that would shy away from a couple more charging points. And effectively thinking about the way you've started developing the area, a lot of the development still needs to happen in the central area, but there are edges and borders of phase 1A and phase 1B that are adjacent to the next phase, to A, to B, whatever number that is. So if you could at least try and make an effort to provide some of these charging points in the public spaces, at least in the areas that are closest to where you're going to develop next, that I think would show.
I think that's a fair comment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think that's fair.
Very constructive suggestion. Thank you, Katerina. Thank you. And thank you, Ian, for your positive response.
Yes, and sorry, ultimately, just the very last point, just generally speaking, when Ian, I hear you say quite a few times, I've heard you say that it's not in your remit to do one thing or provide some facilities in the development. We're hoping that you want to build a community, and we're telling you how we think that this community could improve, what we think should be implemented. Especially with phase 1B, we often had the impression that we were a bit of the guinea pigs of the whole of the development, where things are tested. Could this work? So the layout of Winchester Avenue, for instance, was going in one direction, and now it's being redesigned. So we've seen a lot of this, call it trial and error, or let's start in one way and then maybe the council will ask for something different. So I understand that some decisions don't depend on Cala, but don't take it as just the residents demanding people, and we want more and more and more. But as a growing community, fast growing community, because luckily you're selling houses very quickly, and we want that for you, because we'll be a complete community faster than it looks now, perhaps. But we suggest, or we request some things to improve our life and the life of those who come after us in future phases. So it means to be constructive feedback. And of course, sometimes there are frustrations, but there are little details in the grand scheme of life in Kings Barton. So I think most people are very happy to live here, and we want to see this development grow and us all become a community.
And if I could just respond to that, if I'm honest, I thought I only said it's not in our remit to provide school signage. I'm not sure I said anything for anything else, but if I did, I'll accept that. But I agree with you, Katerina. I think, you know, in the sense that we're trying to grow this community. We're part of the community at the moment. So we won't always be, because in however many years' time we won't be there anymore, but we hope to leave a good legacy there. I think that to say that you were guinea pigs on phase 1B is not fair, I don't think. I think that the issue with the road, because, and it's only the spine road, it's because it was a departure from standards that Hampshire County Council Highways had raised some concern, and I think it wouldn't be fair to say that sometimes left hand doesn't talk to right hand here, which has meant that we've installed something that we know highways are unhappy about. So we've stopped installing it because there's no point doing that, to then look at an alternative option that would still be attractive, but would then satisfy Hampshire Highways. Now, there's all sorts of technical safety reasons why they weren't happy. They didn't just change their mind, you know, so there's a process, safety audits, technical approvals, all those sorts of things that at the very start of a development, when you're getting planning, these things aren't thought about in the same detail. So it's physically impossible to do that. So there's a process that's been followed. It's better that we stopped installing rather than resurfacing the whole road, getting it all done and then ripping it out later, in which case residents would be coming to us and saying, you installed that road a year ago, now you're digging it up. So that's what we didn't want to do, which is why we called a halt on it, re-engaging with Hampshire, talking it through, trying to find a solution. We think we've now got a solution. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Hampshire. We now think we can proceed with that, and then we've got to apply that to phase 1B. So please don't think you're guinea pigs. You're absolutely not. But there is a process to go through, and that, you know, that's unfortunately.
Thank you, Ian. I think it's all been it's been a very difficult couple of years. There've been various significant things that have rather held things up and made things difficult. But I think we're all pushing in the same direction, and we very much appreciate you coming along this evening and talking to us in this frank manner, both sides really. So thank you very much, and let's hope we can facilitate the solution to all these issues as soon as we can. That would be great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming along, Ian and Viv. And let's move on now. I'm very pleased that we've got a representative from Vivid with us this evening. I don't know if you want to give a brief report. I'm sorry, I've lost. Oh, it's Mark, isn't it? It's Mark Gittos. Thank you very much for coming. If you'd like to give a brief report, that would be great. Thank you. If you could put your microphone on, that would help. Lovely.
That's it. Thank you, Chair. It's going to be a very, very brief report. With the physical development, our footprint now is fully occupied, and all residents moved in across the mixed tenure, and our involvement now is more around working with Chris Hughes around an integrated community development approach across the whole of the phase 1, phase 1B and phase 1A. So it's more of a soft development, with working with the communities that are there, working with the Residents Association and keeping in contact. That's all I've got.
Thank you very much. Do members have any questions for our representative of Vivid? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I know
there's a hand up, Councillor Porter.
Oh yes, Councillor Porter. Thank you very much, Councillor Porter. Councillor Porter.
No.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for that report. We have some concerns about, or have had from residents, some concerns about the storage of waste in the areas around the flats, because it is very difficult to open them with your waste in your hand, and also there's a space underneath and things go under it as well. I wonder if you've had any conversations with residents or tenants about that, and whether you're doing anything about it. Also about Sharps waste.
Sharps waste, I would have to inquire about and get back to you if that's okay.
Thank you.
With regards to the bin stores, etc., and the issues there, I know that the NO Emma has been having monthly updates with Councillor Idale. It's something that they've raised because there was a stiffness on the door and the lock that was used, and I think they're going to appropriate a new lock so that it's easier to use.
Right.
So I know that that's on.
Because I think we do want to make sure that people have no excuse for leaving it outside the door. We want to make sure it's firmly inside the units and also inside the bins. So that's really key. So will you be able to feed back on that of when that's been done?
Definitely. Emma, who had to pull out very late this evening, would have been able to update on that, but we'll be in contact tomorrow if that's okay with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Councillor Horrell, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to ask a question. We know at the City Council we've been paying particular attention to dialoguing with our residents in our own social housing, particularly those who have struggled in the recent pandemic, and we've taken some very positive steps in trying to help people who perhaps find themselves compromised in terms of paying their rents, etc., because of circumstances changing for them. And I think that's been a very positive step that we've taken, and we've also put some monies aside. Could you just help me to understand what you as an organisation are doing to make sure that the individuals who come into the accommodation that you're responsible for, Barton, are getting that same support measure, or are you finding that you have residents who are now finding it difficult in these circumstances to maintain their property? Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I can't talk specifically about Kings Barton, but across the whole of the footprint, I know that our money and advice and benefit teams have been working extra long hours to give financial support and support people getting all the finances through UC, etc., that they're entitled to. I know that in our latest figures, I think there's something like 1.2 million that they've gained access to that people weren't being paid across the footprint. I know that for socially isolated and those digitally isolated, we provided 600 digital tablets, and it was a lot of money being put in. I know that there's a lot of work around supporting local pantries and local food banks that we've been doing, and also signposting people to a lot of the facilities in the area like Norwich and Southampton Catering that have been providing free school meals in that area and supporting that. So there's been a lot of work done, and I think it was about 2.8 million that over the pandemic period that we've been putting into our neighbourhoods, not just necessarily with our customers.
Thank you, and might be helpful if you wouldn't mind just following up about Kings Barton specifically.
Yeah, I'll get some specifics
to let us know that we're in safe hands in that area too. So maybe you could feedback on that our particular development offline. That would be kind. Thank you.
Certainly will. Thank you, Councillor Horrell.
Yes, thank you to our community officer would be great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Horrell. Thank you very much for coming along, Mark, and we hope that that we'll have a regular presentation from our social housing providers at the forum. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Pinnock, on the next item on the agenda is item 10. I know that the County Council officer, Katja Holloway, who's here, has probably got a lot to comment on that we've already discussed in some elements with the report from Carla. Do you think it would be a good idea to have this now, the Hampshire County Council report, and then move on to the community development side, which of course Chris is responsible for, and so it would be a very brief sort of summary, won't it? Is that okay?
Very brief,
Yep.
Chair, but I think you're quite right. Let's get on to the county council
Thank
issue.
you. Thank you very much. So
Thank you.
if we could talk about infrastructure and the elements that the county council are responsible for, and I'm very pleased indeed that we've got Katja Holloway from the county council with us this evening. Thank you so much for coming along, Katja. If I'm sure that you've got a lot to contribute to what we've already been discussing. If you'd like to give the county council report, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Yes, I think actually most of the questions that were raised for us have been covered probably in quite a lot of detail by Carla, but I'm quite happy to go over those again and answer any questions.
If I may, I think we're particularly concerned about the Wellhouse Lane Bridge situation, and that should be done in time for the school opening. If you could just tell us what's happening there.
Yeah. So we have been working very closely with Carla on this agreement, so we have to get the road agreements in place so that the works can be undertaken. As far as I'm aware, we're almost there. What we're waiting for is something called a BAPA agreement, which is a basic asset protection agreement, which has to be signed between Carla and Network Rail. Because works have to be done to the railway bridge and underneath the railway bridge, and that's currently outstanding. So until we have that agreement, and until Network Rail sign our highway agreement as well, the works can't commence. Carla may want to correct me. The last update I think we had was that there's an outstanding invoice, which is why that's not progressed yet, but we're just waiting for that to be logged onto the Network Rail system for the BAPA to then be agreed. So we're not very far away. There are, I think Network Rail give 20 working days from the date that the invoice is lodged to them completing the agreement. My understanding of the timelines are that the programme for the works is that it's due to commence mid-October, and that is obviously subject to these agreements being in place. But it's not something that's going to be, the works are not going to be complete in time for the school opening. We are not very far from that all being agreed now.
Lovely, thank you very much. I've got a few questions from members, if we may. First of all, we've got Mike Slynn from the Residents Association. Mike, if you want to just quickly ask a question to Katja Holloway.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so a couple of things I'm not understanding. Could you just advise us what is the situation on the Andover Road signalised crossing and the speed limit on Andover Road? We had a letter from the County Council saying that there will be a decision in the spring on this, on the question of the signalised crossing. So be grateful if you could bring us up to date on that. And also, I just would like to understand this issue of the design speed and the speed limit, because it's normal practice that the speed limit would not be greater than the design speed on a road, and yet, as I understand it, it's the other way around on Winchester Avenue. Perhaps you could just explain what's going on there. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to do that. We did get an update on the signalised crossing. It's not part of the planning agreement, so it's not actually covered as part of my role. I should have explained. I work in development planning, so work specifically on planning applications from the highway side. But I have asked for an update for the crossing, and the latest news is, just going back to my notes. Sorry. is that the anticipated date for delivery is summer 22. That's subject to the approvals and progression through the design process. So it is going through our approvals process currently, and is due to be delivered next summer. And in terms of the design speed, it's not an uncommon practice to have a design speed lower than the published speed limit. It's not Hampshire County Council's policy to implement 20 mph speed limits as the published speed on Hampshire roads. That doesn't mean that we can't design roads to a lower speed to create a safer environment, especially in a situation like Barton Farm. There are numerous ways we can do that. We won't actually implement it as a 20 mph published speed limit because it's not enforceable. The police would have to enforce that, and the police would not come out and enforce speed limits of 20 mph on that road. It is also, when the road is complete and open, that is still a B road and a main artery into Winchester, which we have to bear in mind as well.
Thank you. Okay, Mike, have we answered the question?
Yes, there's been an answer, and we obviously need to take it away and think more. But just to clarify, are you saying that the signalised crossing and a lowered speed limit on Andover Road will be in place by summer 22?
I don't know about the speed limit on Andover Road. We didn't have that as one of the questions on the list, so I haven't, as I said, that's not something that I cover as part of my role, so I would have had to have got an update from the relevant officers. So I can't comment on the speed limit for Andover Road, but the signalised crossing, the anticipated date currently is that it will be next summer.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Thank you, Katja. I've got a couple of questions. I think Councillor Porter, did you have a question?
I was just going to reiterate what Katja had said about the crossing, that was I think the S106 money will contribute towards the cost of that work because it's works off the site, but it is actually an off-site piece of work, and I was reassured that it should be complete by July 2022, which is encouraging actually. I think that's pretty much in line with where we thought we would be on that one. And then obviously that's why we're very keen to see the path connecting to it.
Thank you, absolutely, yes. Thank you, Mike. If you could switch off your camera and microphone now, that would be lovely. Councillor Horrell, did you have another question?
Chair, thank you. No, I don't think I indicated, sorry.
Okay, sorry, thank you very much. I've got a question about the spine road. So we heard from Carla that there's been a lot of toing and froing about that. Is that now absolutely agreed that the standard that needs to be built to, and that's going to go ahead now? Is that right?
I think we're almost there. There are a few some more minor issues which are outstanding, which are currently being agreed. I think it's important to comment that although this has taken a long time, as we've already covered, this does set, as Carla said, this sets the principle for the rest of the spine road. So when the subsequent reserve matters applications come in, it should be a fairly straightforward process for those elements which incorporate parts of the spine road to then agree those as part of our review of that planning application. The principles will already be set. They will have already gone through a very robust safety audit procedure. We'll have already gone through the whole 278 procedure to ensure that we're happy with the design principles. So it should speed things up significantly in the future.
Could I just ask, do we know what the design of the link from the existing Andover Road to the new Spine Road and all those sorts of junctions, have they been agreed yet, or is that still in process?
They have not yet come in as reserve matters applications, so we haven't looked at those in detail, those junctions.
But But presumably there'll be some discussion with Carla before the final plans come in, because otherwise you might just say no, it's hopeless, and throw it out for another 2 years. Presumably you're working together on those plans. Yes.
Yeah.
Good, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't think we've got any other questions from members for our representative from the County Council. So thank you very much indeed for coming along this evening, Katja. That's very much appreciated. Thank you. If we could move on to community development activities, Mrs. Pinnock, do you want to just briefly report on that aspect? I know with Chris being very poorly for some time, it's been difficult, but if there's anything to report on this, that would be good. I've got a question about Barton Meadows. So.
I mean, there isn't anything to report. I asked Chris and he said there'd been some sort of tentative discussions about some community activities sort of going forward. So what I wondered was, and I thought might be, useful if we heard tonight or perhaps after the meeting, from the community themselves, any ideas that they've got. And obviously Chris will be in touch to sort of, now he is back to work and sort of getting back into the role, how we move that forward. So I'm happy to maybe roll this one over to next time, but let's make sure we've got something tangible to sort of talk about and lead forward on. So, it'd be lovely to hear from residents. I know the parish councils have sent apologies tonight, so maybe we could touch base with them separately, and any ideas ward members have as well about how we move that forward.
Thank you. I've got a question about a few things actually. The first thing was a polling station for certainly phase 1B. We were told we couldn't have one for this May, but is there a possibility of having a temporary or using a room at the school or something next year, COVID dependent, obviously? Barton Meadows, with my parish councillor hat on, there's a lot of concern about access and maintenance of the footpath around Barton Meadows, which during the epidemic, with the pandemic, has been extremely well used, but to the detriment of the path, I think, because at times it's been completely unusable. But also that part of the open space that's supposed to be public open space has been fenced off and is padlocked and not available for public access. If you could comment on that. And the third thing, I can't remember what it was. It might come to me in a minute. If you could just deal with those, thank you.
Yeah, Chairman, I think as you'll probably expect, I'll have to take those things away. I know I recall the discussion last time about the issues with the polling station, and I know that the team that handled that weren't able to put that in place for last time. I don't know if they were asked to consider that for next May's elections, but I'll certainly follow that up, and I can give some post sort of meeting feedback on that about whether there's any opportunity for a room or something in the school in the 2022 elections. Again, I'll have to go back to our the team that manages the Meadows, won't I, and find out about the position on that. I did recall at the last meeting there was discussion on this informal footpath and the wear and tear on that, but I'm not sure what the answer to that was then, Chair, so I'm going to have to come back on that. And similarly, POS, the public open space, is fenced off and padlocked, and I'm not sure if that's the City Council that have done that or the developer.
It's the Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Trust, I believe.
Okay, so yeah, that's
who manage it, the Barton Meadows.
Yeah.
The other thing I've remembered, which was from last night's parish council meeting, was the ongoing request for a review of the number of councillors on the parish council so that we can increase as the size of the parish in terms of households has more than doubled. I know the parish council is very keen to have 12 representatives instead of 7, so that we can have proper representation from Kings Barton, since the parish council represents most of the new housing at the development. Perhaps that's obviously again, you'll have to go and talk to other people about that. But if we could minute that and perhaps raise it at the next forum, that would be brilliant.
Yes, yep.
We've got a couple of questions. I believe. Councillor Cranwayson was wanting to know about the post box. I think we've got a commitment to a post box, but it takes a while to be installed. Is that right? Councillor Cranwayson, did you want to ask that question?
I can jump in if you want, Chair, on the post box. Sorry,
yes.
It's Viv here from Carla Homes.
Oh, hello, Viv. Thank you.
Yes, we've had a probably, I'd say a month or so ago, we had a request from Royal Mail to sign the purchase order to install the post box with a location of their preferred position in 1B. That has been signed and sent back, and they did, I think in their reply, I think it was probably a 12-week delivery to get it in. So I would have thought by the end of the summer you'll have a post box in 1B.
Brilliant. So people will be at least able to post their votes even if they can't actually turn up and make their mark in person. That's progress. Thank you very much. Councillor Porter, did you have a question? No, Councillor Horrell. Sorry, Councillor Horrell. And Councillor Porter later. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question to ourselves, actually, probably to Mrs. Pinnock, but also to the county in some form, and also to Councillor Russell Gordon-Smith. And that is, how are we tying up the development at Kings Barton, the long-awaited update on the movement strategy, which obviously impacts this development, and indeed the Sir John Moore Barracks development that is being discussed as a live project as part of the local plan submission. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to ensure that the three projects actually they triangulate, and that we are clear in what we are all understanding about those activities. That may not be something we can answer this evening, I accept, but it may be something that we're asking Mrs. Pinnock and the officers to go away and help us to understand, because there are implications from they're all interrelated in some way, and we're dealing with them all in isolation currently. But certainly as a councillor which has a vested interest in several of these projects, I think it is incumbent upon us to understand how they are, as I say, triangulated. So it's probably a question for further response, Chair, but I think it is important that we have that discussion because they're all live and meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horrell. In fact, that probably comes under item number 12, future agenda items. I don't know if Mrs. Pinnock, if you want to just very briefly comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, I mean, it is a good question and a good point, and it's something we're very mindful of, both officers and our cabinet member. Andy Hickman is our lead officer on this corporately, and we're talking with him very much in terms of all of those areas you've discussed, particularly with our local plan, how we triangulate that in terms of the movement strategy, you know, and other development sites that come forward and how we look and deal with those as well. So I think Councillor Rutter is right, it could be a future topic. We could get Andy along and we could sort of talk about that in terms of how that links to this development. But as you say, it's the wider picture, the bigger picture. So I'm happy to take that away, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Horrell.
Could I just ask you then formally if you would consider that as a future agenda item for the next meeting, which I think is highly appropriate.
Absolutely, let's take that is the first of the future reports that we will ask for at this forum at future meetings. Thank you very much, Councillor Horrell. Councillor Porter, you have a question, comment, point?
Yes, in fact, it was related to the parish council meeting we had last night, which was the conversation about the play areas. Because they're quite far apart from each other, the parish council expressed concern that each one was being designed for a specific age group. As they're quite large, they felt that there was an opportunity to incorporate more than one age group. As they said, it was quite hard to get your children between the three different sites. and I wondered, I don't know if Viv is still here, but I presume that that's something that as part of the City Council work with the team when they're doing their reserve matters, that could be a part of the conversation. And the second one was that we've been having conversations about spending the S106 transport money, and I've been working with the county officers on this. I invited, and Councillor Iredale very kindly put it onto the Facebook page in the Kings Barton Forum on their Facebook page, to invite comments about what they thought of the bus service that did exist on the Andover Road at the moment. And we only had about 5 people respond. We had other people from all other parts of the journey, but that particular section. So could I use this forum just to invite people, if they do wish to use the bus, to give us an idea of what they want, because the officers are very keen to design a service that works for residents, not create a bus service that the residents will have to work around.
Thank you, Councillor Border. Perhaps we can ask residents to communicate with the Residents Association about the buses and their views, and then they can pass all that on to us. That's brilliant.
Councillor Iredale's very happy to pick them off Facebook and send them.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, the play areas. It's on my list of future reports. So thank you. Shall we move on to that next and final agenda item then? Which is to look at items that we would like to discuss in greater detail at future meetings of the forum. So I've got a few here to suggest. Perhaps Mrs. Pinnock could comment on whether that would be possible. The first is Barton Meadows access and eco-diversity, perhaps having a report from the Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Trust as well about what they're doing to increase diversity in Barton Meadows. But we could also look at maintenance access and those other issues. The second one is perhaps an update on archaeology. I know that we've had some archaeological work being done on various parts of the site. It would be nice to hear if anything interesting has been dug up, as it were. I think that we did talk about future phases, final plans, whether or not it would be appropriate to have more workshops and resident involvement in discussing those, particularly around the village centre, but other phases of the development, and then things like the problems with the play areas might then also be picked up at a stage when we can actually do something about it, which would be great. And finally, are people hearing me?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was making a list and ready to come in.
Good.
When you're
Sorry, I was just, there wasn't any comeback, and I was thinking, oh no, I've lost them again. And finally, so that was the play areas as part of the future phases as well. And then finally, if we could return to our traffic lights report, part of the agenda, looking at the S106 agreements and trigger points and where we are with those, and looking at and indicating whether we're green, so green for go, orange for it might happen, red for it's definitely not happened, and this is an issue that we need to address, because I think members all found that very helpful. And if we could have that for future agendas, that would be great. Mrs. Pinnock.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We've got 3 dates left in the diary for this year, haven't we? We've got 19th of October, 18th of January, and then 15th of March. With your permission, Chair, I'm just wondering, sorry, I've lost my screen. I can't see you. Let me get back. I was just wondering whether, if I put it, perhaps schedule this out and then see who, you know, and talk to the people involved, because obviously for Barton Meadows we need the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, see if I can get them to the next or the one after. Archaeology, you know, try and schedule them in so as we've got 1 or 2 of these for each of the next 3 meetings.
Yes.
And make sure that we've got availability of those, because I wouldn't want to say we'll do it next time and then they can't come. And, you know, if we could schedule a programme out across the next 3 meetings for these. I think I've written 6 things down.
Sorry, I was going to say we also did agree at a previous forum that we would try and have a site meeting or a site visit of myself and perhaps a representative from Carla and some officers, maybe even a county council officer if that's possible, to actually look at various issues on site in between forums, so that things don't slip quite as much. I think that might be part of the getting together with Carla and working proactively to ensure that things are supported as much as possible from our end as councillors and council officers. That would be very helpful, I think, perhaps if we can factor that into our schedule of meetings.
You're quite right, Chair, and I think maybe we could try and fit that in, hopefully, if we can get all the parties together before the next meeting. So as we try and schedule something in the next, I don't want to be too ambitious, but 4 to 6 weeks perhaps.
Absolutely.
If hopefully Chris will be well enough to try and line that up. If not, I will try and bring that together. On one of the future pieces of work that you mentioned, and I don't know if Viv wants to kind of, if with your permission, Chair, chip back in. I did talk to him about the future sort of phasing and update and how we make sure we sort of workshop and engage with the parish councils. No, Viv was very sort of up for that and fully intended to. So I don't know if you wanted to hear from him just briefly on that, Chair.
Yes, Viv, if you wanted to comment on that, that would be great. And then we've got a question or a comment from Councillor Godfrey. I mustn't forget. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yes, I think you covered it, Julie. Thank you very much indeed. No, we're conscious that it's been a while since we had some proactive public engagement on the site. COVID has unfortunately got in the way of a lot of that, meeting people on site and chatting to residents. But I think we are in a position now where we can start to re-engage on future phases. I think we set out in our responses that we're looking to deliver looking to start implementing 2 of the next reserve matters as being phase 3A to the south and phase 2B to the north. So that the 2B infrastructure and residential homes there will start to create that connection north to south between the 2 phases, which I know will be welcomed by the community, and particularly the residents in 1A and 1B. I think there are other community engagement pieces we can do. We can look at one of which is the play area design on our phase, which we've got recent reserve matter consent for at 2A. That is the sort of the biggest play area on the scheme. It's got a multi-use games area as well, so I'm keen to find out what residents want to deliver there, and I think we will be in a position probably over the next few months to share that and seek comments. I think that'd be great for us to be able to do that with the residents, and particularly those with younger children. Take the point about the play area. We do have a play strategy for the wider site, which links in 4-5 players across the site. So maybe that is a piece we could present at the next forum, and to show how those different age groups are catered for. I know obviously the one we've delivered in 1B is for predominantly the 5-year-olds. The play area is coming forward.
You will find that most families have children of different ages.
Yes, I mean it's in part of the outline permission. That is a play area specifically for the younger user, and ultimately that there are players around the other side which have a far greater age range where you have to comply with that. It wasn't necessarily a choice. It wasn't a conscious choice from Carla. That's what we obligated to deliver. But we can put together the strategy and present that holistically, so you can see the bigger picture. I'm sure we can do that for the next forum.
Thank you. It would be nice to allow residents to have some input into that at a stage where they can actually influence the actual outcome. Yes. Would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Godfrey, you have a question or a contribution or a suggestion of future agenda items?
You make up your mind, Madam Chairman. An item for future meetings. South Wonston Parish Council last night, the councillors were very elevated by the prospect of the opening before the end of this year of the South Wonston to Hairstock cycle path coming out of the waterworks just to the north of King's Barton. One of the issues which is concerning them is what happens to the cyclists once they've went their way across the fields. and I think it would be really useful to have a detailed look at the cycle routes in, out and through Kings Barton development, to make sure that we can support and advertise those, and make sure we are joined up.
Indeed. I think we all desperately want to see some joined up cycle paths, Councillor Godfrey, but that's a great point. Yes. I've got Councillor Porter and then Councillor Horrell. Thank you.
Just for information, Councillor Warwick and I have been informed that a conversation has taken place with the landowner, so people won't be going straight out onto the Andover Road. I think we'll all be relieved to hear that on that cycle path, but there is a conversation now about how they get across Wellhouse Lane and so to join the other path. So I think that the point Councillor Godfrey makes is good, but just to reassure you that people are not going to be going out onto Andover Road.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Councillor Horrell, you have a contribution?
Yes, Chair, I've been trying to make that point. I thought you didn't list it in your review with Mrs. Pennock, but I thought we were going to agree, and we need to do it in October if it's meaningful for the local plan, the triangulation of Sir John Moore, the movement strategy, and
yeah, I think we've already agreed that one. Yes, it was already there. That my suggestions were in addition to that, Councillor Horrell.
Okay,
thank you very much.
But also, Chair, you did not add to your list, and I was delighted with the response from Carla this evening that we should try and work together between now and a future discussion about how we can actually try and enhance the partnership. And I think we should be that should be on our agenda next time for us to come back and respond and say what we can do differently and how perhaps we've had some good ideas between us. So I think there was a great positive indication that we could do that offline, and I'd like to recommend that we come back on the 19th of October agenda to actually see what we have in mind, which I think will help residents to understand how we can move forward on some of the things that concern them.
Thank you, Councillor Horrell. Thank you. Yes, I think we'd all taken that on board actually, and that it was going to be in the next agenda. So don't worry, it won't be forgotten. Thank you very much. Mrs. Pinnock, did you want to? Oh, we've got Viv. Was that an old hand, Viv? Sorry.
It was a new hand.
Thank you.
I think just on the engagement piece and working proactively together, I think it was just wanted to make the point that we've recently engaged a communications team or external company to assist us in that process, not just for Kings Barton, for all development sites. And there's BECG, who I believe have an office in Winchester anyway, as a communication team. So they will be involved on a sort of some of the engagement side with residents, but also members. I think would be quite keen to meet and have some of those conversations offline, away from the forum, before we come back in October. So no doubt you'll be getting an invitation to get in touch in that shortly, but just say that it's something we're looking at ourselves anyway.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And hopefully once Chris is back and fully functioning, that he can bring all those trains of thought together as well. Mrs. Pinnock, was there anything you else wanted you to say in summation at the end?
No, thank you, Chair. I think we've got a clear work programme for the next 3 meetings, and then some items in between as well, haven't we? So we'll see if we can get up this site meeting with a number of key players before the next meeting. Viv's kind offer there to see if we could talk to this firm. I have heard of them, the BECG marketing firm, whether we can fit that in with them before the next meeting and talk about common strategy, and then we'll agree that work programme. I think what I've heard is ideally, and I did have it on my list, the Winchester movement strategy and the triangulation, the local plan and some of those other sites. We'll try and get that as a priority for the October work stream, and whether we can fit something in around that sort of enhanced partnership working and what we can do, as City Council, Hampshire County Council, members of this forum, and Carla, to sort of help keep things moving and how we can help deliver some of these things together.
Absolutely. Lovely. Well, thank you very much. Well, in the absence of any more contributions, no, lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a very positive and helpful meeting, I think. And we've slightly overrun my own time of closing at 8, but anyway, 10 past isn't too bad. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you at the next forum, if not before. Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, Chair.